So I'm super excited today to be talking to somebody who I consider to be a friend, but it's also somebody I admire, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. You all know him as that guy, that doctor that tells us everything that's going on in the world in terms of breaking news, and certainly has been all over COVID. But Sanjay is also an acclaimed author, and his new book is super exciting to me. It's called Keep Sharp, Build a Better Brain at Any Age, featuring a simple 12-week program. This is the book, and we all want to keep sharp. I blurbed it just to say, because I believe in what Sanjay's doing, and I believe that we can all focus so much more on our brain health. And I think there's a huge desire to know more. So I think this book, Sanjay, super timely. I know it was supposed to come out before COVID, right?
That's right.
And so now it's just come out. It's doing really well, which is super exciting. What does that tell you that it's doing so well?
Well, first, can I just say thank you, Maria, because, I also interviewed you for this book
Yeah.
and I talked to you very early on, and you really, you did help shape my thinking on the book itself and some very specific issues within the book. And, you have been the person that I think of quite a bit when I think about educating the population
Yeah.
on dementia, on Alzheimer's, and also making it okay to talk about, which is
Thank you.
something that my mom wanted me to convey to you, because we don't talk about these things a lot.
Yeah.
It's the stigma, maybe the embarrassment, whatever it is, all issues that you've addressed, that gets in the way sometimes of making progress. So, I just wanted to say thank you again for that. I think, the fact that, in terms of what does it tell me that the book is doing well, first of all, I'm just thankful that it is, but I think there's a real desire for people to want to understand how to improve their brains. And that sounds like a very euphemistic thing to say, but I think the brain is often thought of, Maria, as just this impenetrable, thing in the black box of skull. Like, you think about improving your heart or muscles or,
Yeah.
whatever, but the idea that I could tell you that you could improve your brain now and make it more resilient against disease later. I think for many people thought that's a misguided quest. The neuroscience community has over the last decade made some remarkable progress, and that's what I really wanted to get at in this book.
So it's one of those things that I have found in all the work that I've done. People can't see it. So it's hard to think about keeping it in shape,
That's right.
keeping it sharp, because you can see, when your arms start to get flabby or your legs get flabby and you go, oh, I can tighten that up, or I should go tighten that up. But people don't have a clue about how to sharpen or tighten up their brains. And it's certainly kind of new to tell people that they, in fact, can do that. People are like, wow, really? I can.
Yeah.
And so if you have someone's undivided attention right now, which you do, what are the things you would say to them that are the most important things they can do today that will keep their brain sharp?
Yep. Um, and I will say one thing is, like, how do you know your brain is sharp, right? That's kind of getting building on what you're saying. I mean, people may say, well, I can remember a list of objects, or I remember that person's name. They usually associate it with memory of some sort. And, just to set the table, it's very interesting, memory. I learned a lot while writing this book. What is the purpose of memory? What is sure, it teaches us lessons. Don't touch a hot stove, avoid a tiger, whatever it
Yeah.
may be, the survival lessons it teaches us. But what is the purpose of memory beyond that? And I just find this fascinating, Maria, because it gets at what you're asking. But our memories are the stories of us.
Yeah.
They are our own life narrative.
Yeah.
That's what they exist for, to sort of be the recorder of our story. But that doesn't mean it gets everything perfect. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't change. How we remember something one day may change very much depending on how we look at it the next day or the next month. I just find that fascinating, because we're measuring something objectively, knowing that it can be so easily changed and understandably changed. But how do you know your brain is sharp? I think that the idea, and I don't want to sound euphemistic, but the idea that you have a certain amount of joy, a certain amount of happiness, that you're in a good place, however you want to refer to it, is also the sign of a healthy, sharp brain. I think that intuitively makes sense, but it's probably a much better predictor of the health of your brain than can you remember a list of 10 disparate words.
Well,
So
somebody might struggle with, they say, well, look at, I may struggle with depression. So I quote, don't feel like I'm in a good
yes,
place. Does that mean my brain isn't good? Does that just mean I have depression? But many people, particularly baby boomers, really do freak, I would say, when they can't remember the list of names, when they walk in the room and they can't remember why they came in there, or
right.
when their brain isn't firing at the level they remember it used to fire at.
Yep. Yep. Well, and first of all, I'm by no means would minimize truly objective mental illness, and there
Yeah,
are, we're getting better, as you point out, at being able to peer inside the brain and see areas of the brain that aren't receiving the same amount of neurotransmission because of depletions of serotonin or whatever. So that's by no means to minimize it. But it's something that maybe can be treated depending on medications or what
right.
might work for the person. So I don't mean to minimize that. As far as the forgetfulness, we're
Yeah,
oftentimes panicking of it
yeah,
because we think this is an indication of what's to come.
yeah,
This is the beginning of this trajectory. And what you learn, and again, I talk to many of the same people you talk to, who all say hello, by the way. I was talking to Richard Isaacson earlier today, and just about this very idea. And first of all, purpose of memory is not to
yeah,
remember random objects, but
right.
also it's this idea that I walk into a room and I can't find my keys.
Yeah,
Okay. Now that's a problem. But if I don't remember exactly what the keys are for, that's when you start to think this is an objective problem. And if the cues that are given to me to remind me, hey, for the car, Dad. Oh yeah, for the car. The number of cues
yeah,
it takes to get you there as they increase in number, that's becomes an increasing sort of indicator of concern. But for most people, Maria, the number one reason they don't remember where their car keys are was because of inattention. It wasn't
yeah,
that they
that's it.
forgot, they just
Yeah,
never
that's it.
remembered.
So where a lot of people talk about, Jim Quick talks about that, about
Yeah,
inattention, right? And that we're such a distracted world that none of us are paying attention, right? But I think that really people want to say, okay, I want to pay attention, but I want to know, what can I do? It's a new year. I want to have a sharper brain.
yes.
I want to work on my memory. So, what can Dr. Gupta tell me today to do that will help me in 6 months, where I will feel like I remember where my keys are? I remember that guy's name that I met last night. I remember my market list that my friend gave me. I don't have to write it down in my phone.
Right, right. So, what I really focused on in this regard, there are the kind of known strategies, some of which you talk about, these ways of really increasing your attentiveness to things that are going to stick, that are going to make it so that you're actually much more likely to pay attention and impregnate these experiences into your memory stores. That's just critical, regardless of age, regardless of overall health or anything. And as part of that also, I think I look at the best evidence around movement
Mhm.
in terms of how much is really the right amount, around diet, around connection with people, how many friends, what types of interactions are we talking about, all that stuff. But the thing that I think I really drive at, and I drive at it because it fascinated me, Maria, is that right now your brains are sort of working like your COVID life is. And what I mean by that is that you're at home, you may go to your office at the foundation, you may go to your kid's school, you may go to the grocery store, but very few places. You know how to get to these places. You can drive there basically with your eyes closed. That's the practice makes perfect part of your brain. And it's great. That's great that you can do that. But there's a lot of areas of the brain that we're not building those roads. We're not building new buildings. We're not building new cities. And you can do that by simply doing different things. Example I give is eating with your non-dominant hand tonight when you eat
Yeah,
dinner,
yeah,
something like that. Trying to tie your tie with your eyes closed in the dark. These are simple sort of things, but the idea that you're recruiting different areas of your brain, and if you want to visualize it, you're building new roads, you're building new cities in your brain.
mhm,
It's phenomenal, first of all, when you do it, because it makes you happy that you suddenly start to connect things that you otherwise wouldn't have connected. That's what it feels like. You're seeing patterns that you otherwise were missing. Ah, this goes together with this. There's a joy to it right now. But I think more importantly, when we talk about dementia and things like that, could you have objective evidence of disease, amyloid plaques, tau tangles within the neurons of your brain, and still be totally cognitively intact? We know the answer to that question is yes, because there's so many people out there who have evidence of this in their brains who would have no idea. They're totally fine. They don't feel it.
Yeah.
So how do you turn that into a more permanent situation? Well, if you have all these existing roads in your brain, then when the roads that you're used to driving on need construction or become blocked, you have this resiliency and this reserve in your brain. So what I'm saying is you're essentially turning what is a frightening prospect of dementia and something we all worry about into even if they were objective evidence of your brain of changes, it wouldn't be affecting you. You would still be cognitively intact and maybe even getting sharper as you age.
So, but for people who are like, okay, I want like the specifics. So like,
Specific tips, right?
well, no,
Yes.
they say, so you talk about the importance of sleep. So
Yeah.
that is a really important thing. We talk about the importance of exercise, right?
Yep.
And how movement builds BDNF in the brain, right?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
there's specifics. So yeah, I wanted to give the what's and the hows. So the what's, the movement is very interesting because movement is the right word, I think, versus, a specific amount of exercise during the day
Right.
where you're exercising for 30 minutes and then sitting or lying for 23 and a half hours. You want
Right.
to be moving throughout the day because it's probably one of the most evidence-based ways to release these neurotrophic factors in your brain, like BDNF, brain-derived
Right.
neurotrophic. It's like miracle grow for your brain.
Yeah.
And you can objectively measure this,
Yeah. So that's, I like that. So movement, right? Not necessarily, as you just said, going to the gym and then sitting down, but keeping yourself moving, kind of contrary to the normal lifestyle that we're all kind of have adopted. So move, sleep,
The sleep.
eat, eat for the brain, right?
Yep. So with the sleep cycle, and again, I'm telling someone who knows all this, but the
Right.
idea that sleep is actually a very metabolically important part of our brain's health, that it
Right.
actually allows us to consolidate memories. So you have these wonderful experiences throughout the day that if you want to remember that as part of your life story, let the brain consolidate those experiences into memories at night. That requires good sleep. But there's also a rinse cycle that seems to be
Right.
going on in
Trash
the brain.
cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we every time our cells divide, there's a little bit of metabolic debris that needs to be washed away. It does happen, as I've been reading in these journals, all the time, but it's
Yeah.
the most efficient at night. So sleep is just critical. We all know that. None of us get enough of it. I have not been practicing what I preach. I admit it, but that doesn't make that it's wrong.
Yeah.
We need to do that.
So simply, so I think I just like to reiterate these things so people really like let them sink in. So I'm going to sleep, I'm going to move, right? I'm confused about what to eat and I'm confused about how to eat for my brain. I understand what a heart healthy diet is. I understand, how to maybe lose weight, but how do I eat for my brain?
I spend a lot of time talking about this. I'll tell you, there's a couple of basics that are true. I think, as you say, what is good for the heart does appear to be good for the brain as well. The brain is 2% of your body weight. It's taking 20% of your blood flow. So if your blood is healthy in terms of a lower fat diet, more antioxidants in your bloodstream, that's probably going to help your brain as well. But I do think there are some subtle differences that are important when it comes to the brain. Sugar is a big one. Sugar's
Yeah.
bad no matter what. We know that we eat way too much sugar. We used to get sugar as human beings twice a year when fruit fell from the trees. I mean, even honey was protected by the bees, right? Now we eat 130 pounds a year on average.
Yeah, I have a sugar problem.
Look, I do too. I mean,
I
so
know it's really bad though. It's bad for the brain.
it's particularly bad for the brain. In fact, some have come to this term, which you may have heard, Maria,
Yeah.
type 3 diabetes,
Yeah.
which
Right.
is really a type of diabetes associated with dementia. And what they're saying is that because of the poor insulin levels in the brain, you can have a lot of sugar circulating in your bloodstream, but it's not actually even being absorbed as energy in the brain. So think
Yeah.
about that. You're eating a ton, but you're still starving your brain.
Yeah.
So slashing sugar, huge, I think.
Yeah.
Let
Okay.
me just add a couple quick ones. You know, hydration, I think, is really important. We know
Great.
that again, but when
Yeah.
you feel that pang, maybe in your case for the sweet tooth or whatever, the pang for energy and the pang for hydration
Yes.
is right around the same
My
area of the brain.
Christmas present from my son, right?
There you
You
go.
can do it. Start here. You can do it. This bottle definitely is half full. You're almost there, and keep filling it up because of the importance of hydration.
And people forget otherwise, right? But
Yeah.
2% hydration, 2% dehydration can lead to measurable cognitive deficit. 2%. So, you know, hydrate. And if you live in a resource intensive environment and you feel that pang and you don't know whether it's hunger or thirst, if you have a lot of food around, people eat. So
Yeah.
we walk around chronically stuffed and dehydrated. I do lean into the omega 3s, and I explain why in the book. I think there's some conflicting evidence, but I reviewed hundreds of papers as part of writing this book, and I think it's interesting enough for me to say add omega 3s to your diet, and overall portion size. I think that's a big thing. I give specifics depending on who you are, your background, gender, your pre-existing conditions.
Yeah.
I think those are some general rules that you can immediately implement.
So also, Sanjay, I think people talk a lot about, should I be doing cognitive training on the computer, or should I just be socially interacting with people, or should I be doing both? Should I be taking all these supplements?
Mm.
In addition to doing all of those things, I'm paranoid, I'm 60. In addition to those things, what's your takeaway on cognitive training on the computer versus social interaction?
I
Or
think if I had an hour, I would do the social interaction.
yeah,
It's pretty simple,
right.
and this gets back to the
I love that.
idea. This gets back to the idea, Maria, that practice makes perfect, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
change builds resiliency. Cultivate those other areas of your brain. I think brain training can be good. And there's been some data, I think you and I have even talked about, like
yeah.
games like double decision, which can
Mhm.
really truly improve your processing speed,
Processing.
which I
Yeah,
think is great. I mean, we all
yeah,
want to have faster processing speed, but that's like going down the same road faster. Great. And that can be good.
yeah,
But if you buy into this idea, which I think you should, of building new roads and building new cities in your brain, like surface map your brain like the surface of the earth, build new roads and new city and new towns, you will understand why doing different things are important, and interacting with friends, talking about new topics, being vulnerable around them, talking
yeah.
about your problems, asking for help leads to a profundity of relationship and new experiences that you don't have. You go be vulnerable with somebody that you know, just ask for help. You're going to have a profound experience.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's going to cultivate, maybe it's a little uncomfortable even, but it's going to cultivate different areas of your brain. That's part of doing something that scares you every day, getting outside your comfort zone. When you have that feeling, that's probably new neurons being recruited. It's going to help you now, and it can help protect you later.
So many people ask me, Sanjay, and since I'm not a doctor, but people say, I see this ad on TV and it says, if I take this pill, all of a sudden, I'll remember 10 things. Or I saw this new drug. Do you know anything about it? If I take this, right away, it says, it'll bring my memory back. And I always say, if it sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true. There's no pill you can take that's going to instantly revive your memory if you're struggling with MCI, for example. But there are things that you can do, I think, that are in this book, right, which is the purpose, that
Yes.
will slow that down or perhaps prevent it from happening in the first place.
Yeah, and maybe even reverse it, which is, what that's a big topic of conversation within the scientific community. Can
Yeah.
you actually reverse? And I think there's evidence, and I present it that you can. And I'm talking about lifestyle, not pills. To your question, I think unless you're nutrient deficient in a particular area, it's hard to make the case that certain supplements are going to provide some sort of benefit. I mean, our bodies are designed to metabolize things a certain way. By super dosing on things, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You just clear those excess nutrients away. But I think also there's this effect, which I find interesting, called the entourage effect. I don't know if you've heard this, but basically when you eat food and let's say you're getting the lycopenes in tomatoes or something, we know that's the active ingredient, but we know that there's probably hundreds of other micronutrients that are coming with it in the tomato that you're eating.
Mhm.
We don't know what all those other things do, but we know they have a role. They help open doors, they signal channeling mechanisms so that the active ingredient can actually exert its effect. If you take it, just the lycopenes, and put it in a pill, you're not getting that
Yeah,
entourage effect of all those other micronutrients. So I mean, I'm not maligning the supplement industry. I think many are trying to do the right thing in terms
yeah,
of providing a service to people who aren't getting a good diet otherwise. But it's hard to take the good stuff out of food and put it in pill form.
right.
That's basically it. So all the other things I think that we talk about, you can get through basic lifestyle changes without needing to add in the supplements.
Yeah, I think the kind of really what you're advocating here, first and foremost, the brain is something I think that we all depend on 24/7 all the time. Don't think about it until all of a sudden it kind of sputtering, right? And then
Right.
we freak. And I think what you and I both are saying to people is begin thinking about this at a very early age. Think about it like you think about your heart. Think about it like you think about your bones or your body. As I always said when I'm talking about, because Alzheimer's and impacts women disproportionately to men. But I always say if we spent as much time on our brains as we did as our lips, our eyes, and our thighs, we'd have really sharp brains, right? But I think it's such a new and exciting area. And so there is a lot of interest in what can I do to keep myself moving. And I think all of these areas are kind of simultaneously, you see so much on diet, you see a lot on loneliness, on social interaction, on sleep, on meditation, and sometimes it's coming at people so much that people are like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. But really, all of it helps in a way, right?
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that there is so much information out there. I mean, I've been doing
Yeah,
this sort of, I mean, you've been a communicator to the masses for such a long time, right? In some ways, what you've learned is that you do have to present things in a way that's very accessible and
yeah.
understandable to people, which I really wanted to do here as well. I mean, I've had this long-standing love affair with the brain, right?
Yeah, you write
My,
about that with your grandfather in the beginning
my
of the book, which is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. But I love this idea of what the brain is and the fact that it can be optimized. But I also understand that we want to give people things that are very tangible in their
Yeah,
lives.
yeah,
Take a brisk walk with a close friend and talk about your problems. There is something very actionable that's COVID friendly as well that you can do. But also, I think as you learn more, I mean, we we have this desire for autonomy when it comes to our own bodies and our own health. Understandably, we don't want to just hand this off to doctors and they tell us what to do and we just do it. We want to understand how our bodies work. So these strategies that we talk about, they sound simple. Why do they work? What is actually happening in your brain? That's what I wanted to really get at in this book as
yeah.
well. So I think that you read the first time and then you may say, well, why did that work? And now I'll share this with a loved one and tell them here's why it worked. And it's sort of a fun process for people to go through.
I love also what you were saying in the book that you think maybe in the future we might not even use the word dementia,
Yeah.
that we will begin to kind of talk about people living with these diseases, and that I think AIDS is a really good example of what could happen with Alzheimer's, or for
Yeah.
people who are struggling with Alzheimer's, living with something. The more we kind of focus on the brain, the more we can see now, right? Like
Yes.
when I started advocating for Alzheimer's, nobody could even see into the brain, or people couldn't talk about Alzheimer's until you had an autopsy, and
Right.
nobody dared talk about lifestyle.
Right.
And so, how do we talk about lifestyle without shaming the people who do have Alzheimer's and making them think like you didn't adopt a healthy lifestyle? That's why you got that. That's not it at all. It's just that we're learning, right? Every day through doctors like yourself and researchers and through funding research about things that might lead us down a new road, as you say.
Maria, you always teach me something. I just listening to you right now, because I hadn't really thought of it that way. And no, by no means should this be shaming anybody.
Yeah,
I mean, the neuroscience community has just caught up to some of this over the last decade. Again, your
yeah,
friend Richard Isaacson's done some incredible work in this area, but this idea that it made total sense. The practice makes perfect. Let's get the roads that we drive every day working in great shape and that's what I'm going to do. That's my brain. That's the way I live
Yeah,
my life. I'm driving to these places. The idea that you should be doing things that are totally different. Well, why would you become a jack of all trades? How is that going to help you in life? How is that going to help protect your brain later on? This
yeah,
is rather new thinking,
yeah,
and it's absolutely true what you're saying. You could have had a great diet and great amounts of movement
yeah,
throughout your life and still deal with this disease. But if I could help build reserve in your brain, so even if you have the disease,
yes,
you're not suffering the cognitive decline of it. It's kind of like living with HIV/AIDS, turning that into a chronic disease
mhm,
versus a death sentence. You may still have Alzheimer's objectively if I were to image your brain,
yeah,
but your cognitive function is intact. Is that a
yeah.
win for the individual? Probably is.
Absolutely. And that I think is opening up a whole new area of research for people to look at brains, see plaques and tangles, and see no MCI. And so that's, completely a new space. So I think I love this book, Sanjay. I love that you have taken this on, keep your brain young, healthy, sharp, and that it's a science driven guide, which is terrific. It's practical. I think those are always the best things when they're practical and science backed. And I always tell people, also follow your own, how you feel in your body, right? How do all the researchers and doctors that I work with say that we're in this era of personalized and precision medicine. So what may work for me, as a woman my age, when it comes to hormones, might not work for another woman
Sure.
my age. And that follow what works for you, push your doctor, right? Push
Yes.
your doctor, know what's making you feel sharp. If you love, what is it, double decision on the brain games and it's working for you, keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
If brisk walk and vulnerable sharing working for you, keep doing it, right?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely, Maria. And it happens fast. You think
Yeah,
about doing things for your heart or even your skin or things. Some of those take a while to actually see the impact. Some of
yeah,
these things that we're talking about, you can feel your brain working better immediately. And when I say working better again, I don't want to sound overly euphemistic, but when you're in a better place, you
yeah,
feel better. You're
yeah,
likely to make better decisions. If you're thinking about the meal you're about to have, you're less likely to choose the ice cream and more likely to choose vegetables because you're in that I want to do the right thing sort of place, and it's a happy place. So it's hard to know when your brain is functioning sharpest, but these are some clues, as you're mentioning, to sort of figure it out.
so before you go, Sanjay, let me just get you today, kind of, here we are, new year, the vaccine is rolling out or sputtering out. Are you hopeful?
Hmm.
Go
Yeah,
blue.
I mean, I am hopeful. 2021 will be a better year than 2020. I guess that's a low bar, but it's going to take a while to get there, Maria. And I mean, I think it's hard right now as a medical reporter because there's this cognitive dissonance. I'm very inspired by these vaccines, and I think it should be celebrated.
Yeah,
I think the pace of medical innovation will be forever accelerated by what happened over this past year.
yeah,
But at the same time, like where you are, in many places around the country, it's the case rates, the new case numbers are staggering, and
yeah,
people are being hospitalized, and there's not necessarily enough, basics resources right now. And
yeah.
that's really, really, it's a really tough situation for people. And the numbers are likely to get worse over the next few weeks. The vaccines are going to be a tremendous asset. It's just that they take a while for them to actually feel that impact. So, I am hopeful. Like I have three tween girls, and I think when they go back to school in the fall of 2021, I feel like they're gonna, with great humility, I say this because anything can change, but I think that their school year will feel like a relatively normal school year starting next year.
And
I
you
think,
didn't have any hesitation yourself in getting the vaccine. And, there's so much misinformation or disinformation or whatever regarding the vaccine. And people say to me, "You're not going to take the vaccine." I'm like, "Hell yes, I'm going to take the vaccine. Whenever my chance comes up, absolutely, I'm going to take the vaccine."
yeah,
And
no, I had no hesitancy, Maria. I mean, and and I've also, as a reporter, I've been following the whole process. I
Yeah,
talked to the researchers at the NIH who created the first platform for the vaccine. I've been talking to the folks at Moderna and Pfizer all along. I guess that's helpful just because I saw the process unfold. I looked at the data. I was doing that in part as a reporter, but also because I would be having conversations like this with you. What
yeah.
makes me confident? I saw all the data. I saw the process of this vaccine. My biggest concern was it wouldn't work, not that it would be unsafe. And now we know it works.
And so do you advocate one versus the other? You say Moderna is better, Pfizer's better, or just take whatever you can get?
Yeah, no, I think this is kind of like the arranged marriage in India. It's just told to you.
Those are supposedly really successful.
That was a bad metaphor. I don't know why I said that. What I would definitely, when it comes to Pfizer, oh, my mom's gonna kill me. She loves you, by the way, so she's watching.
Oh, well, I watch that Indian matchmaker show.
Right.
I'm like, maybe I should call that woman. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe does she help non-Indians? I don't know. But yeah.
Places we thought this conversation would not go.
But
Yeah,
anyway, so just take whoever they give you, right?
take whatever you can get.
Take whatever you can get. But
I
don't
do think that there's
take
not a
whatever
big
you can
difference.
get in terms of good advice from Sanjay about that. But you're hopeful. You're hopeful about our brains. You're hopeful for all the baby boomers who are freaking
Very
about
much so.
Alzheimer's and dementia, that they can actually, it's not too late to keep your brain sharp or get your brain to activate.
Almost any age, and we grow new brain cells at any age. We have
Yeah.
neuroplasticity. I'm really optimistic because so much of what we know works. Most people haven't even tried yet because this is a relatively new field. That makes me really optimistic.
Yeah, and I'm super optimistic about, as you said, that the speed at which this vaccine was developed, that gives me hope about Alzheimer's. It gives
Yes.
me hope about the FDA, which seemed to take forever about everything. All of a sudden, it can really actually get its act together on a quicker basis, and that research is moving at such an accelerated pace. So, I mean, there's hope for all of these diseases in a way.
Yeah, there was researchers out at UW who called this the moonshot of medical science, this vaccine
Yeah,
development. The thing about the moonshot was that it had all these ripple effects, like you're saying.
yeah.
GPS came about as a result of our voyages to the moon, so it could have a ripple effect of benefit on Alzheimer's and other things as well. So I think medical innovation is really going to be beneficially affected by this, and that helps humanity.
Well, that's great. The book is called Keep Sharp. I'm so glad that your mother likes me. I don't know, that makes me feel older, but I guess it's
No,
okay.
no.
That keeps me sharp.
He loves
We have
you.
an Indian matchmaker, and I saw your Go Blue cup. So my
Yes,
son just graduated.
I had to hold it up for him. I know. I
You
remember.
held it up for him. So we're connected on so many levels here today, Sanjay. But I want to thank you for writing this book. As I say, I think the more all of us can talk about brain health, the more we can demystify it, the more we can give people hope who might be thinking that their best days are behind them. I think it's great.
Well, Maria, thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. You've taught,
Thank
I think, the entire neuroscience community a lot about this and focused a lot of attention on it. And I'm just trying to do my
you.
part.
Oh, great. Well, you're doing more than your part. So keep sharp.
You too.
Go
You
Blue.
too. Go Blue.
Send the Indian
Indian
matchmaker.
matchmaker. Arranged marriage.
Okay, bye.